Hello, my friends. Dorothy here, professional astrologer, if you didn't know. We're going to talk about the new moon in Virgo, which is on August 23rd. Now, I will include in this forecast, we have three other aspects that are going on. Actually, one, two, three, four other aspects that are going on during this new moon phase. And so, which is just a couple of days long. So, I want to cover that. And while I am getting ready to share my screen with you, which I will do right here. I also want you to um, just to recognize and to know that right here on the 23rd of August, we have this new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo. And in 1 month from now, actually 28 days, on September 21, we have the next new moon at 29 degrees of Virgo, and that is a solar eclipse because we're about in our eclipse season again, September 7 and September 21. And the new moon solar eclipse on September 21 is also in Virgo, but it's at the last degree. So, why do I say this ahead of time? And I know that's very in-depth astrology information, but go ahead and just let that go in one ear and out the other for the non-astrologers. And let's talk about what this new moon in Virgo represents, as well as what is influencing this new moon. It's not just simply a new moon where we start new things based off of the qualities of Virgo, which I'm going to describe to you. We also have these aspects that are nice and tight in here, and it is going to really create the energy of change that we're looking for. So keep an eye on here and let me get started. So this new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo, fresh start, right? Always new moons are always about fresh starts in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is very earthy, very grounded. So we're going to plant seeds, do our journaling, and around the energy of being grounded, being organized, and focusing on the things that we want to improve. Because, nature naturally calls us to clarity, to order, to meaningful improvements, to, whether it's our routine, right? Our daily routine. Those things are really important, our daily routines. Our health and our wellness is part of our daily routine, our sense of purpose and service to others. All of these things are what Virgo is about. And having this new moon at 0 Virgo, that's the main theme, right? Really important to keep that in mind. But what you can see here in this chart is that funny looking isosceles triangle. It's called a yod. The finger of God it's called, or some people call it finger of fate, finger of God, whatever. Um, it points to the moon, which makes it a true yod. If you follow, if you read, if you study yods, actually the true yods are just planets, and with the moon at the apex, it's certainly an important thing to focus on. So when we have this Virgo new moon, so sun and moon making a quincunx aspect to that Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries, as well as Pluto in Aquarius, there's a lot of stress and tension, and it's inviting us as a new moon to set intentions and what in the things that we want to move forward, especially in regard to Aries, especially in regard to the Virgo energy of our daily routines and our health and our wellness. It's so important to pay attention to that. And one of the main things that I think is super important is to, with this Virgo new moon, as well as the quincunx aspects, which create that yod pattern, is, finding your answers in the present moment. That is going to be something that this whole new moon phase represents, is making the adjustments because of those quincunx aspects, right? That yod pattern, because it is both. It creates this, we're constantly having to make adjustments when those aspects are, lasered into something. And they're attached completely and totally to this new moon. I mean, you can even see it if you like to look at the aspectarian grid over here. You can see that everything is all within 1 degree, 1.5 degrees, all of these different aspects. And it just creates this real intense focus on details, but without getting, I think that the lesson of this is without being in such a state of perfectionism that we can't move, right? This yod can show that to us. These three planets that are in quincunx with the sun and the moon is gives us the opportunity not to be so hung up on perfectionism, which Virgo is well known for. It just helps us to take one step forward and be really present. This is the best way that we're going to use this energy is to stay as present as possible because that 0 degrees of Virgo carries with it that fresh start because we want to set intentions and we want to make steps forward. But the quincunx aspects that create that yod pattern are saying, wait a minute, we're going to have some setbacks. So that's why it's my belief that being as present as possible is the most important thing when it comes to working with this beautiful energy of this new moon in Virgo. And when we get another month from now on September 21st, new moon solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo, that also gives us that opportunity to complete some things while to make space for what's next. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when I do start working on these eclipse forecasts. But in the meantime, that's what I want us to do with this new moon in Virgo. Now, let's cover just a couple of these aspects really quick. And I just want to make a quick reminder that I do have this written out on my website. As a blog, and if you just sign up to be on the website, there's no cost for it. You just get notified when I actually put things out in the blog, as opposed to waiting till the newsletter goes out, because that goes out a little bit later, a couple days after this. And so, yeah, join us over there. There's no cost for that. So you can get that blog, and yeah, it's about 1,500 words. So you get to read through it, and it gives you prompts, journal prompting, and things like that. So it can be really, really helpful. Okay, so let's start with that. Hold on. I'm going to hit pause for a second. That was quick, just because I had a tickle. Let's go back to the screen. Actually, you don't even need to see the screen because I showed you what I wanted to show you. So now what I want you to consider is I'm going to briefly cover these three aspects. Hopefully you're going to stay a few minutes longer. So that's Sun, quincunx, Saturn. So Saturn, Sun in Virgo, Saturn in Aries, adjusting your pace is a real good way to look at this. And so the complexity of this one is about taking those methodical steps that Virgo loves, but using the Aries energy, which has really nothing in common with Virgo, but it's going to prevent us from acting too quickly or too independently, even though we might feel torn. We might feel like, gosh, why can't I do this? I want to hurry up and do this. And I want you to make sure that you don't overthink things, but also we're going to feel impatient, but we need to be more present. And again, just get back into the moment. Don't be like mindlessly scrolling, mindlessly doing things. I want you to be as purposeful as you possibly can. We need to have patience as well as that feeling of responsibility, because that's that Saturn energy. Now, we also have, I can share the screens with you. Let's get to the charts. Here we are. I did create the other chart. So here's that new moon in Virgo. Here's the next one, the Sun, quincunx, Saturn. The moon is moving on, but it's still part of this new moon phase, which will last 2.5 days. Okay, that's how long each phase approximately will last. So you do the math, and then it gets to the crescent moon, and on we go, all through all eight lunar phases. So this is what the Sun Saturn one looks like. This is when it's exact. You can see the date in the top left-hand corner, so the 23rd at 7:05 a.m. Then on the 24th, on Sunday the 24th, is when the sun makes the same aspect with Neptune, and it's separating enough where you can see it's an S, so it's a separating aspect from Saturn. So anyways, what is this next aspect? The Sun quincunx Neptune. So still the Virgo Aries connection, which has nothing in common. And, so that Neptune's influence, that Neptune in Aries is can create a little bit of fog. It can soften our focus, can blur the boundaries between what's real and what's imagined. And you could honestly feel a little less certain about what your goals are, and our energy can feel a little depleted with this aspect, as well as, especially with the Sun Neptune, really is what it comes down to. The Sun Neptune and the aspect, our energy levels we might feel a little wore out, and for no reason whatsoever, or whatever the reasons are. Some of us have those reasons. And if it's Virgo, sometimes it could be, if you're somebody who has autoimmune things, when the sun gets into Virgo, Virgo has a lot to do with our daily health and wellness, and autoimmune things have that. Some of them, of course, have that component to them as well. And so back to this. That was just an aside. So Virgo's natural tendency to hone in on the details, especially when and get into that perfectionism phase, especially when we're unclear about something. But Saturn is saying we can't force clarity. We can't force it. We need to take our time and allow yourself to find the answer. Give yourself some space, give yourself some peace, let yourself, give yourself a break for a minute so you don't have to feel so pressured. That's what that shows us. The next quincunx aspect is between the Sun and Pluto, because Pluto was the highest number in that whole setup. I know the moon's moving on, but the sun is still part. All of this, again, still new moon phase. So you can see here is the sun and Pluto in that quincunx aspect. And the energy of that is quite unique. I want to make sure I'm sharing that screen. Let me see if I can. Yes, I am. Good, making sure. And so with that Sun Pluto quincunx, this is like deep shifts like that happen beneath the surface, right? So this aspect of that new moon with the sun and the moon in Virgo quincunx, that Pluto in Aquarius, the deeper level of transformation. So this influence, while this is all happening with just in, a couple of days time period, it still is a new moon. So it initiates something. It's a period of focus that we will come back to again and again and again. I do the lunar gestation cycle, especially with you guys who are on my Patreon. You know more about that than most people. And every new moon is the beginning of a long 3-year lunar gestation cycle that we visit every 9 months until we get back to the another new moon, which is in the same place 3 years later. And so it gives us this deeper approach. And so why a new moon, while it is fleeting, it's also a point in time that I want us to come back to, and I always go back to them when I'm looking at what's happening in my life. I look back, it's like, what was the new moon related to whatever's going on in my life? And I would pay attention to that. So always, always journal around new moons. Even if you're not one to set like absolute intentions and goals, make sure that you at least journal around that time period in relationship to the quality of this new moon, which is Virgo, of course. So the daily routines, your daily health and wellness, your co-workers, just the things you do on a regular basis is really important. And so with this new moon being in the quincunx aspect, which is part of that yod pattern with Pluto, it's like we're really in a place where we can start to, the evolutionary process can begin, and things can start to organically change. Pluto always is in charge of the biggest transformations that we go through, but it has such a long life compared to our lives and any other aspect. It takes time for us to really see what actually is changing. And then the final aspect, which isn't a quincunx, but Sun and Uranus have been in a square, and that also happens. Here it is. That happened on Sunday early in the morning at 3 a.m. Eastern time. But if we go back to that new moon, you can see it's still there. It's all within 1.5 degrees. Everything's within 1.5 degrees of each other. And so when the Sun and Uranus are in a square aspect with each other, that gives you and me that opportunity for the square. First off, the mutable squares to me are a little bit easier. I feel they're easier. Gemini and Virgo are two mutable squares, and they're both ruled by Mercury. So there's this communication component here that is through the roof. So that Virgo wants predictability, and that Uranus and Gemini thrives on disruption and change and unexpected, but it also thrives on grabbing new information and sifting and sorting through it, Virgo. So there can be some sudden developments or unexpected frustrations, that's the square aspect, that we don't want to let go of. But again, it can also, if you're flexible enough, you can also use the stress of that as an opportunity or the impetus to be innovative. And then with that Pluto aspect after this one, you get to start and initiate a change that you've been wanting for a long time. Because, the world is changing so quick and fast, and the energies that are coming at us are just through the roof, right? And so much is changing. It's not a good thing to stay the same. It doesn't mean you don't have your core values, of course, values, integrity, being authentic. All of those things are incredibly important. But when you're journaling around this, and when you're trying to problem solve over the few days, actually, it's just going to last for the whole time that the sun is in Virgo, as we're processing the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th, especially because that is the new moon phase time period. Just keep in mind that it's just like write things down, process. I turn my AC off so it'd be quieter, and I'm hot. And so just finding your answers. Let me get back to the focus here. Finding your answers in the present moment is just going to be the most important thing that we do for ourselves. And I think that is just going to be key. So here's my journal prompt. Let me open my notes up, get my journal prompt. And you can read this again on my website, DorothyMorganAstrologer.com. Just click on the blog tab. Go in and explore. I have classes on there that you can just buy, and you have lifetime access to them, so you can learn things. So just go in there, play around. And journal prompt. Where in my life am I trying to force clarity or control the outcome? Good question to ask yourself. You can think about it before you sit down and do any new moon journaling, but just think about that or process that. Or how would it feel to slow down, like to pause and take one step and let the next one reveal itself? Those are important things to pay attention to as well. And that is, again, that whole process of this new cycle with the new moon that we have. It helps us to be patient and present, and we get to take one breath at a time and plant new seeds, and just be in the present moment. And I think that is one of the most important things that we do. You will find your answers in that present moment with this new moon, and it is amazing. And I'll leave us with that. And thank you for the members for your continued financial support. I really appreciate that. It's helping a lot these days. And for those of you who are watching this later in the free capacity, comment, like, share, subscribe. That helps out too. Blessings, everybody, and namaste.